Hi, and welcome to the Built Different podcast. I'm Julie.
And I'm Ramon.
All right, y'all. Today we are telling on ourselves. This episode is called Red Flags We Ignored in Our 20s and 30s.
Wow, red flags. I
Red
didn't just,
flags.
I personally, I'm not speaking on everybody. I didn't personally ignore the red flags. I literally gift wrapped them, rationalized them. I explained them away. And then I put a little bow on them on the top, like, no, it's okay. This is totally fine. This is totally normal the way that people are acting.
Nothing to see here. Okay, so first, let's be clear. Red flag gets thrown around a lot. A red flag isn't just something annoying, it's a pattern, it's information. It's your nervous system whispering or screaming, hey, something's not right here.
And before anybody starts kind of shifting in their seat, you got the jitters, got the bubble guts, relax. We've all ignored red flags or 12 or 13 or 25 or 30.
Every single one of us. So if you're listening, like, I would never, yes, you have. We all have.
So we're gonna jump into some red flags we ignored personally.
Mhm.
So let's talk about the early warning signs, the ones we brushed kind of off in our 20s and 30s.
Right. Not because we were dumb, but because we were hopeful, lonely, attracted, socialized to think those behaviors were normal. Maybe we didn't think we deserved better, or we're just tired of starting over. So, like the first red flag, they're great, except for this one thing. Anytime you hear yourself say they're perfect, but just know that but is carrying a lot of weight and maybe a warning.
And then I think that's when you start negotiating with yourself. Nobody's
Mhm.
perfect. True, but some things aren't quirks. They're kind of warnings in disguise. And the individual is showing you who they are. We're just ignoring those individuals because of maybe the attraction, maybe their smile, maybe their eyes, maybe their body
Mhm.
type, all these other things. And we're not paying attention to the signs that they're giving us saying, hey, I'm crazy. I'm I'm senile, chaos, and I'm gonna kill you.
My goodness. Not to the true crime part. Yeah. I mean, think of it as this way. When we first start dating or when we're going out, we sort of send out our PR representative, right? Hopefully, your PR representative still looks a lot like who you are, but sometimes they don't. And sometimes those red flags are little peeks behind the PR representative, showing us something about the person that might not be on the up and up, right? Or might not be a fit.
Mhm.
So, like our red flag too, inconsistency that you label as busy, being hot and cold, great one week, distant the next, engaged, and then pushing you away.
And instead of saying this doesn't feel good, you're like, just have a lot going on. Maybe they're just busy. Maybe they just can't text me a single word of hi, hello, busy, call you in a minute.
Yeah. And we all get busy, right? Like we all have times in our lives when we get busy, but like you said, there are times we just send a little, hey, things are kind of crazy. I'll call you soon or I'll text you soon. But when we don't give that, we may be trying to tell ourselves, oh, they have a lot going on. But meanwhile, if our nervous system is going off, if we feel unsettled, if deep down we feel like something isn't right, could be a red flag.
Hmm. And which brings us to a man's favorite red flag, or a woman's favorite red flag, or not my personal favorite red flag, emotional damage, but emotional unavailability, aka emotional damage. They don't
Uh-huh.
talk about feelings. They don't ask questions. They don't shut down during conflict, or excuse me, they shut down during conflict. Not they don't
Yeah.
shut down during conflict, but they shut down during conflict.
Shutting down.
They don't ask questions and they don't talk about feelings. I think feelings are hard to talk about in general if you never dealt with a full grown relationship. A lot of times we weren't grown to see relationships when we were growing up in the the 80s, the 90s, and sometimes the 2000s. So we didn't understand what the development of a relationship was.
Yeah. Yeah. And we might have told ourselves, like, "Oh, they've just been hurt in the past. Maybe I'm not patient enough. If I'm patient enough, they'll open up eventually." Spoiler alert, in the past, they didn't. So when we ignored them, we just, in our 20s and 30s, let's be honest, ignoring red flags usually came from things like loneliness, fear of starting over, right? I call that with my clients sunken cost fallacy. This idea that you've put so much into the relationship already that you don't want to give up now because you've already invested so much time and energy and emotion. Chemistry, right? Like, you think, "Oh, we have chemistry." Chemistry is great. I think it's important to have chemistry, but sometimes what we identify as chemistry is really dysfunction that we're used to, and it just
Mm.
feels like chemistry because we're used to operating in dysfunction. Or we can think, "I should be more patient by now." Or maybe our families had some of the traits that we're seeing in this person, and because our families had some of those traits, we don't see it as a red flag right away. Take, for instance, if you came from a family of yellers and then you meet someone and they're yelling and, maybe even a little verbally abusive, but you sort of see that as normal because that's how your family was. And
Mm.
that becomes a red flag that you ignore.
So do we feel like time is running out sometime?
Yeah,
That's
some
why
people
we
might.
that's why we ignore those red flags?
Yeah. I think some people might feel like time is running out and, what if I don't find someone else in the time that I have left because I'm getting older or something like that. And we also have this pressure and the socialization that will have you tolerating things that you wouldn't recommend that your friend do, but
Mhm,
you're doing it because you feel this pressure that you have to have someone.
mhm.
But one thing that I think is true, the red flags always come back. Here's the hard truth: the red flags that you ignore in the beginning are the exact reasons that things in the relationship fall apart later.
So you saying that red flags always come back?
Yeah, they come back over and over and over. If we don't learn the lesson in one relationship, we're probably going to be attracted to them in the next.
Mm. So the control gets worse,
Mhm.
the disrespect gets harder, the emotional distance becomes emotional absence, which AKA emotional damage, which is not good, which is not good.
No, no. And red flags don't just disappear without work, right? Like, red flags escalate. And if you don't learn how to adjust your thinking and see red flags as red, you'll keep repeating the same pattern. I was actually telling a client the other day how if you're wearing rose colored glasses, red flags don't look so red.
Hmm. What if you ain't never wore no red colored glasses and you only wore dark shades?
Well, then everything's going to be darker. You're going to be seeing a lot of things.
Or what if you wear clear glasses and it still look red? I mean, it just depends. But I like
Well,
that
they should be
analogy.
standing out. Don't ignore them.
Yeah, I like that analogy though. Do you believe that not all red flags are the same? It is a his and her red flag. Yes or no?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some red flags that are just red flags across gender, and maybe there's some that are a little bit more gender coded or we make them more gender coded. What do you think? Do you think that there are some red flags that men ignore?
Um, yeah, I think it's a lot of red flags that we ignore, in general because we are physical individuals. We are attracted to people on the outside. I'm not saying we're not attracted to people's brains, people's intellectual conversation, but we are physical beings where we're looking on the outside at individuals, and sometimes we do ignore those blatant red flags. Like I said earlier, as saying when some woman comes up to you and says, "I'm crazy," and they're laughing, take that as a seriousness that they probably are crazy. They probably do have a little bit of Carrie or a little bit of, Jason or Freddie or somebody in them that they're gonna,
Oh.
do something strange. But some of the things we overlook as men, and I say I overlooked as I was growing, out of my 20 and 30 stage was, disrespect disguised as kind of being sassy,
Mm.
constant chaos. And that made me become the chaos coordinator, emotional volatility, feeling drained, but calling it passion. You know,
Mm,
I was the drainer and the drainee. So I
oh,
drained a lot of my relationships personally because I was part of that chaos. I was part of that destruction. And I was part of that toxic relationship that I told myself it was her fault, but it was our fault because we were both doing things that we shouldn't have been doing. We were both arguing about things that we shouldn't have been arguing about. And it was red flags painted all over our face. But guess what? We canceled those red flags out with passion. Passion only
uh,
lasts for that second. Once that passion is
uh,
over, guess what? You're right back to the freaking same thing you started in the first place, going back and
wow.
forth at each other's throats. So what about so
Mm.
enough about men red flags. Let's talk about the women red flags that they
Women,
ignore.
whoo, okay. So I think we ignore lack of effort, avoidance of commitment, that whole like, like we could hang out, but I'm not really into a relationship right now, which is okay if you also don't want a relationship. But if you do, and this person is telling you and showing you that they're avoiding commitment, why are you staying? Poor communication is another one. Emotional unavailability dressed up as like
So
mystery or
a head nod can be communication.
I mean, I think that there could be some better communication than a head nod. Alright. Controlling behaviors. Like, I remember seeing something on social media where this guy told the girl what to wear on a date. Not something like, "Hey, we're going somewhere where you might need to wear tennis shoes," but, like, literally told her what outfit to wear on the date.
Mhm.
It sounds a little controlling to me. Begging behaviors, saying negative things about you or sort of trying to downplay your accomplishments or who you are in an effort to sort of chip away at your self-esteem so that you'll settle for less. And in my opinion, watching Red Pill or
Mm,
Manosphere Con,
mm,
big red flag, in my opinion.
mm, mm.
Yeah, we end up confusing potential with reality. And we think that we could just come in and be a barber the builder and build on potential. And we treat the person like the vision of who we want them to be instead of who they are. So we don't take the person as they are and say, this is who they are, this is how we are interacting. We start building on this dream or this vision of what we want them to be.
So
But
you so
here's the
you
hard
mean so you mean I've been eating Skittles for the longest? Because that's what I thought red pills were, and blue pills, and purple pills, and yellow pill. I mean, it's a couple of Skittles you throw in your mouth and you taste the rainbow. So you're trying to, figure out things, crave your sweetness, you know. But you say something about red pill, blue pill. So is it anything that a pill that a woman takes? And I'm not talking about birth control, but I'm talking about a pill color that they say
Mm.
that women have in this atmosphere.
I will say I've heard of pink pill, and I think I may have seen some pink pill here and there. I find red pill shows up more in my timeline,
Okay.
but I think there are some, there's extremes at both ends, right? Like there's extremes where there's sort of these like gender wars happening.
Mm,
And I think that part of that comes from othering the other gender or
mhm,
making relationships transactional. And I think that we need to focus more on whether or not this person is a match for us and whether we can build something together.
okay.
And I think you go to those extremes like red pill or like something extreme like pink pill, they forget to remember that we're people and that we need to focus on building our best selves and being good communicators and focusing less on these stereotypes and focusing more on connecting with each other in a real, authentic way, in a healthy way.
So I can't just pop that red or that blue pill like a freaking like a creatine pill and just say, okay, boom, it's gonna build me up to this potential
Yeah.
and maybe get me what I want. No?
Yeah, I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no to
Okay.
that.
And I'm not knocking red pill, blue pill, pink pill. I mean, everybody has their beliefs on everything that they do. I think you should
Mhm.
ride with what you feel is right for you, no matter
Yeah.
what type of pill that you take. But do you think so? What would be if somebody asked you if they had a discussion with you, since you are the subject matter expert, you are a couples therapist. If somebody
Mm.
asked you something about red flags that how do you stop ignoring and what would be the hard truth that you would tell these individuals if they were going through some issues, about continuously going through the same situation with the same individual and at the same time over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes you have to get to the point where you feel enough discomfort to make change, right? Usually people don't make changes until they feel a level of discomfort that inspires them to change. Maybe
Mhm.
you realize that this isn't the life you want or whatever you're doing isn't working. So
Mhm.
I think with red flags, we have to talk about the fact that red flags actually cost you something. You have to get to that point where you see the red flags as costing you something. What are some things that you think it makes the cost are for red flags?
I never bought a red flag. I always just got them for free. But if I was saying that if red flags, if I had to think about what red flags cost, they cost number one is
Mhm.
time. Because if you
Mm,
continuously go through this situation over and over and over and over, or constantly down the timeline, you go from this person to the next person to the next person, and it's always the same red flag. It's that time that you're wasting on individuals trying to figure out, what's going on. I think money is a big thing. Money is a way that, it does cost you. Taking out all these
mhm,
different people on dates, spending all these lavish things when you already know that this individual is not going to be in your life, emotionally, physically, or forever. I think a sense of yourself,
mhm,
because you think that you have to be with this individual because you have time with this person. You don't have no ties to everybody that you're with. And I also think the
yeah,
most important thing is peace. Yes, some people love chaos, some people love drama, but a lot of us love peace, and peace could be, man, I'm with this individual. I love this individual. Yeah, do we talk all the time? Yes and no, but they let me have that peace. Are they the most prettiest
mm,
person in the world? Probably not. Are they the most handsomest person in the world? No, but they make me happy. And I think
mhm,
that's a big reason why you need to understand that it costs you when you continuously ignore red flags on a constant. What about for
yeah.
yourself?
For me, it was realizing that ignoring red flags didn't make me loyal, right?
Mm,
I was taught that if you just kept praying and if you were gentle and humble and used soft words and were kind, that the red flags would get better. But what happens in reality is when you stay in that pattern and in that relationship, those behaviors start to enable the red flag behavior. And then it kept me stuck. And by being stuck in that relationship, it made me unavailable for healthier, better relationships, ones that
mhm,
were better fit.
and like I said earlier, for me, realizing that my peace was more valuable than chemistry. I do need chemistry. I need to have some kind of chemistry with that person. I do need to know
Yeah.
we're on the same, road path. We're walking down this path, but we're not veering left or right. We're veering straight forward together. But a lot of times it wasn't no peaceful journey. The chemistry was there. Yeah, chemistry. Wow, we're good, in bed together, or we're good kissing each other, or we're good, when we go out and we make each other look awesome, but
Mhm.
after we leave, the crowd, we're back at each other's throats, going back and forth, in the car until we got home. it just wasn't peaceful, man. It was like it was a war every single day. So,
That sounds
um,
stressful.
when you constantly go through that, in your life and you're raised that way, and you don't understand what the dynamics is to have, just a regular relationship. Someone that you can wake up to, someone that you can, go to bed to, someone that you can just talk to normal. You go through this chaotic, time in your life where you're just ignoring everything that happens, you know, bad to you or chaotic in your
Mm,
life.
yeah.
So, you have any dating? I know you was married for a while, so all the
Yeah.
red flags that was in your marriage, you ignored for 20 years, but it's okay because you got out of it the 21st year, you know? Yeah. So, do you have any
Wow.
first date red flags that you ignored before you got married?
I do. I have a red flag dating story. So I remember when I was in college, there was a short stint where I worked for a catering company. And one of those nights I was working late and I went to school in New Orleans. So my roommate came to pick me up instead of me taking the bus and the trolley like I usually would. And so when she picked me up, she thought, hey, Essence Fest is going on right now. Why don't we drive around the French Quarter a little bit? And I said, sure, why not? So we're waiting at a stop sign and the windows are down, and all of a sudden this guy sticks his head into the car and it startles me. So I rolled the window and caught his head in the window. And so I'm like, what do you want? And so he starts talking to me. Long story short, he asked me for my number. I gave him the number. So he ends up calling me later to ask me out on a date. And he comes to my dorm room or to my dorm. And when I came down to the lobby to meet him, the first thing he said was, "Oh, I'm glad you're pretty. I was so drunk, I don't remember what you looked like." Red flag.
That's not a
So
red flag, that's just a good time.
so we get in the car, we go on the date, and the date is him taking me to some part of the city that I was not familiar with to his sister's apartment where he was I don't wanna give out too much information. Well, I mean, I don't remember the guy's name, but he, I think, was a musician, and we sat and watched videos of his performances.
Oh, that's
That was the
awesome.
date. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So we did that. I was at his sister's house, and at some point he stops the video and he says, "Hey, I have something to tell you. I might not be around that much because I have a federal case pending because I was one of the largest drug dealers in blank parish."
Oh,
And I was
wow.
like, "What?
Oh, wow.
Excuse me?"
That sound
Yeah,
like a good
yeah.
that sound like
Not for me. It was so my immediate thought was, how do I get back to my dorm?" So Um, the date was over, he was gonna bring me back to my dorm, and he says, "Hey, would you like to get something to eat?" I'm like, "Sure, I'd like something to eat." And he took me to the Burger King drive-through.
Mm,
So,
'cause
it's really,
he wanted you to have it your way. That's why.
he's like, "Have it your way, whatever burger you want." So, we pick up, the food, and he drops me off, and so those were enough red flags for me to say, thankfully, there's not gonna be a second date. However, he kept calling, and he would call over and over and over again and harass my roommate about where I was, and sort of low key became a stalker over the phone because he would call all the time and say things like, "Baby, like, why are you doing me like this?" And I'm like, "I'm not your baby. We only went on one date. Don't call me that." And then he would get mad, and he would get mad at my roommate, and thankfully, we, eventually moved out of the dorm at the end of the summer, and so we disconnected the phone, and that was the end of that, but
Wow.
that was
Wow.
definitely a date full of red flags.
Okay. So that sound like that's a pretty cool,
Yeah,
unnecessary, unfortunate red flag
yeah,
story, I'm glad that
yeah.
you're okay. Like, honestly.
Thank you. I'm glad I didn't end up on 48 hours or something.
Oh, yes, yes. So,
Yeah. Do you have any red flag date stories?
nah, we won't name none of my red flag stories because 'cause it'll turn into a movie series.
It would be a mini series instead of just
Yes,
one story.
yes.
Got it. Okay. All right. Well, okay. So with that in mind, let's close with this. Just because you have not recognized red flags in the past doesn't mean you can't teach yourself to recognize them and avoid them in the future.
And we just want to ask, some of the viewers, some of the people that are part of this channel that have subscribed already, what's one red flag you never will ignore
Mhm.
again?
Yeah, I think that's a great like, put it in the comments. What are red flags that you maybe ignored in the past that you'll never ignore again? Or are there red flags that you may think that you see now, but you're not sure and you wanna get some feedback? For me, red flags that I'll never ignore again, early, like, manipulative behaviors, signs of being self-centered, love bombing, doing things like having subtle put downs or gaslighting. So, for an example, this did happen with my ex. It was early on, we were dating, and it was my birthday. And so, mind you, this is in the 90s. So, he bought me for my birthday a DVD player, but he was going to keep the DVD player at his house.
See, he
So, it's
bought
like,
it for you so y'all can watch
yeah,
it at his house.
he bought it. Yeah, he bought it for me to watch at his house when I came over to visit. So, yeah, that's probably a red flag that I would not ignore in the future. And listen, if you're thinking right now, wow, this episode just read my life, you're not alone.
And like I said earlier, DM us or comment or just tell us what is your biggest red flag story because we want to know. Because I
Yeah,
know it's many red flag stories beside the small ones that we said today.
yeah. Yeah, spill the tea. We want to know your story. And listen, we listen and we don't judge. No judgment, just lessons learned. Okay?
Because we're
Because
all built
built
different now.
different now. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. And we'll see you next time on
Build
Build
different.
Different.
Subscribe.